Hello, everybody, and welcome to our latest webinar using this funky platform, Livestorm, to hopefully keep this as interactive as possible. It's a subject that I think is incredibly interesting, and that's why we're delighted that so many people have signed up. There will be a recording that's sent around afterwards, but part of the reason that I'm so excited about this topic is because the subject of it is something that's brought together 5 great organizations who all in their different ways utilize the same approach to supporting young people, and we're all really keen to work together to enable pastoral staff in school to do more of that in those crucial environments. And we're going to hear much more detail about how that works and the value of it. The panel that we've got coming on and off stage has the full range of expertise for this topic. Most importantly, we're going to start off with a young person who's experienced the benefits of having a pastoral member of staff who really made the difference for them. But also we've got members of senior leadership team from a couple of different schools, as well as people who are actually on the program themselves, and crucially, those people who are delivering the program as well. So I'll just say just a little bit about why Jamie's Farm has got involved in this, and I'll ask some of the other organisations to do the same from their perspective. Jamie's Farm now, actually next month, it represents 20,000 young people who've come through our programme. So over the 20 years we've been operational, we've supported that number. In that time, we have seen firsthand the benefit that pastoral members of staff can provide. We've been inspired by them. They often live and work alongside us on the farm on the core programme. We also know that the relational model that a lot of them would like to work with is something that potentially we need to put higher up the agenda in terms of the way that professional and development is handled within schools, because it is that relational approach that we feel, as well as the other organisations in this partnership, we all feel it's the relational approach that really makes a difference, particularly for those young people who need a bit of an extra support to really thrive. In our last year, the relational approach that we used on our farm through our purpose, belonging and reflection model enabled 68% of young people who were at risk of exclusion to no longer be at risk, enabled over half of those young people who weren't on track in their core subjects to be on track. So this is a model that we know works. And as part of our development strategically, we know that while we're not going to keep growing exponentially in terms of the number of farms that we run, we do want to achieve more impact. And the way that we see that happening is by supporting great practitioners in schools to ensure that the environments where most young people are day to day are suitable for them to really thrive. And it is worth stressing, pastoral staff are absolutely vital in that. They are the bedrock of that approach. And we're delighted that, to be honest, this pilot program that we've been running the last year has already achieved so much success, which is why we wanted to tell the world about it. And this is one of the ways that we're going to do it. You saw a poll come up, which helpfully masked my face for a little while. So you probably still have it up actually for a little while. Essentially, we try and keep this as interactive as possible. Please do engage with those polls. It helps us keep this as geared to what you want as possible. So do answer those. We're also going to have hopefully quite an active chat. Any questions that you have throughout, please put them on there so that we can ask questions of the people as they come up. Don't be afraid to do that at any stage, and we'll be able to pose the right person the right question. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Leonie to come onto the stage. Leonie is one of our youth champions. She is a young person who came through the Jamie's Farm program. It is important for us to prioritize her words. Last week, Leonie was on an interview panel with me, selecting our newest head of farm. She did a fantastic job. She was asking the questions then, but she's going to be answering them today. And I suppose I just wanted to ask you, Leonie, firstly, can you think of an example of a pastoral member of staff who made a real difference to you?
Yes, I can. She was called Miss Mills. I don't know if I can exclude names but oh well. Yeah, she was called Miss Mills, and she helped out a lot during secondary school for me personally.
So to talk to us a little bit more about the difference that she made, but crucially how she managed to achieve that difference.
Well, for me, I think it was mainly the fact that um, I had just been diagnosed with ADHD, and she helped a lot because I think I needed to talk to someone a lot more about it. So, like a psychologist, I think you would call them. And she managed to help me through that process of being able to talk to someone about it. And she helped me keep up to date with the rooms mainly that I was going to speak to the person, and obviously what times. So she was very much like somebody who was sort of directing it for me, and
Yeah.
that helped a lot because she was also just there if I needed to talk to someone as well. So for me, that helped like a lot. Um,
And just Leonie, because I imagine there were lots of other members of staff at school.
mm.
What was it about her that made the difference from your perspective?
Kind I don't she was just very like she was really open. Like not too open, but she was really friendly as well. So she like if I wanted to talk about anything random, particularly on a day, she would be there to just talk about like random stuff. She was really friendly, and I think that helped me open up more as a person as well, sort of.
Yeah.
That helps. So yeah.
Well, I think you've articulated it extremely well. It felt like you trusted her.
Yeah, definitely.
And what was it about her that you trusted?
I think I could just trust her as like if anything happened or anything that I was concerned about, she would help me with that. Because I'm pretty sure she was pretty high up in the school. I know she wasn't a teacher; she was a pastoral like support. Um, but if there was like anything, yeah, that I needed or anything, any concerns that I had, I know she would definitely put that kind of top priority because there was incidents in school where something had happened and she was there to help out. So but yeah.
And one of the things that I was going to ask, because a lot of the time people kind of push back on this sort of thing and say, look, you're always going to find one or two kids who will latch on to one or two pastoral members of staff or teachers, wherever it might be. But how do you possibly manage to do it for all the young people at the same time? Do you think Miss Mills was somebody who was able to do that for others as well? And how did she find it?
Yes, I think Miss Mills was very managed, if that makes sense. I know I was at her office quite a few times, and I know a lot of the time she's very managed with the people that she speaks to. So I know for one, she had a notebook and she would carry it around, but she's definitely managed with like who she needs to or who she needs to speak to at times if something comes up, who she would also obviously need to speak to after that. But yeah, managed is pretty, like one word that I could think of that
Very
would describe her.
organized. She made
Yeah,
sure she got around as quickly as possible. But if she was able,
yeah,
it sounded like even in relatively short interactions, you were able to feel that she was interested in you.
yeah, definitely. She would definitely give you like attention. Well, she would give you the attention that you need basically to make you feel that you've been seen or heard.
Yeah, exactly. Feeling seen, which is absolutely vital. A lot of people have said that is exactly what every young person deserves, and too many young people at the moment aren't feeling seen in schools, which is part of the reason we have an attendance crisis at the moment. So here we go,
Yes.
because there are lots of pastoral members of staff on this call. One of the things that I think is really important, I think, is to kind of validate and affirm the hard jobs that they do day to day. I think Leonie's getting asked to move.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
She's at her library at university at the moment. So try and just stand. Just one last question. What would
Mm.
you say to all the pastoral staff on this call about the value of their work?
It is very much valued for someone who was had a pastoral teacher or whatever I don't know what the term is, but it's very much valued. For me, it helped a lot with like I said, there was times where I really needed someone to speak to, or there was times where something came up in school and I just needed someone to speak to. And because she was there and because she was one of the most trusted adults that I could speak to, it helped a lot with me, mainly in confidence and mainly just in the fact that, yeah, I was seen or heard in school because I know that can be very difficult to be achieved in schools, especially with like several other students that also probably might need that.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it helped a lot.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant, Leonie. Thank you very much. And I really hope the people listening to the school who are doing that vital work actually really hear. It can feel hard. It's often a bit thankless, but actually the young people really, really do appreciate it. And you may not have always said it at the time, Leonie. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't.
I think when I left, I did mention definitely that I was very grateful for it. But yeah, maybe not everybody has been told that it's very, very much needed.
Yeah, good. That's brilliant. Thank you. Someone can steal your chair. You can move on. Get back to your studies. Leonie's studying
Thank you very
to be a vet,
much.
which is terrific. We're very proud
Thank
of
you
her.
very much.
Keep on going. And it's kind of segueing in now, because we're going to bring up Verity and Harriet, who have been essential at delivering this great program. I think one of the things that we aimed to do from the very start of this was to raise the profile and the status of pastoral members of staff in school, because they do utterly vital work. And it's great to hear there from Leonie just what a difference it made to her. So moving on, I thought it would be good, maybe if we start with you, Verity, just to explain a little bit what you do in your day job, ahead of actually just explaining everything that you've brought to Power Up Pastoral.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Verity. I am the Regional Director at the Reach Foundation. I'm currently on the move in a cafe in Leeds, so please just give me a little wave if if it's getting a little bit noisy. But what we do is kind of work with schools and trusts who want to have a more kind of cradle to career approach to their work, who want to work in a more coherent way. And part of that work, and the bit that I'm really passionate about, is having really strong relationships with students like Leonie, but also between staff and families. So it was a sort of a no-brainer for us to work with other organisations that are really relational and develop our relationships between us. Gosh, it's getting a bit meta, isn't it? But to make sure that we're all working together so that we can support those colleagues who are working in school, delivering the support that, as Leonie has just beautifully articulated, is really needed and is valued. And also, I think what Leonie just said was really crucial, where she said, I don't even know the name for the title of what these amazing people do. And I think that's something that we really found, that non-teaching pastoral practitioners are often a group who are doing a lot of the relational labour in schools, and are incredibly important, and aren't necessarily always given the time and the development opportunities that they really deserve, and certainly not celebrated as much as they should be. So that's I answered both questions in one there.
You did very well. Thank you very much. And moving on to Harriet. Yeah, just a little bit about what you do at Beyond Borders, the vehicle that you guys use. And also, I think maybe if you could answer the first question, the big one, what is the vision for Power Up Pastoral? And in particular, what need it is designed to meet, which I think Verity touched on there as well.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Harriet, and I work at Football Beyond Borders, and I spend most of my time thinking about and designing and delivering training for our own practitioner team who work out in schools to support young people who are at risk of school exclusion. And our practitioners are really lucky to provide a long-term relational intervention for those young people. So they work with them across 4 years of their school journey to provide trusted adult relationships, to unlock those positive outcomes. And I guess, our practitioner team have the joy and the privilege of that time and space to do that real deep relational work with the young people in their caseload. And so at the start of this Power Up Pastoral journey, I was really keen to capture a lot of the learnings that we have from our own internal training journey and roll out some of that really good stuff into the sector. Because, I really believe that pastoral staff are the relational backbone of their school communities. And yet, as Verity has named, often their training and development is left up to chance. And I really believe that this workforce is key to driving positive outcomes for the children and the families experiencing the most vulnerability, and then embedding that relational practice beyond just their own work, but within their wider school communities.
Brilliant. Thank you, Harriet. And let's stay with you for a second and just ask, because the vision's amazing around that stuff, but what are the direct outcomes that we're hoping to achieve through this work?
Yeah, we have lots of ambitious outcomes, I think, and our outcomes framework is layered. But for the pastoral staff on the course, we're hoping to improve their ability to provide quality, trusted adult relationships to the children in their schools, to do better linked up and partnership working with families and communities, and for them to feel more confident, not only in their own practice, not only collaborating with other colleagues, but actually really driving the language and the relational practice with their colleagues and the wider staff team in their school communities. And in addition to that, I think a big part for us is providing pastoral staff with a wider network of professionals, like-minded professionals, so that they can feel part of this movement of relational trusted adults, feel like a really valuable workforce who are the key to unlocking better outcomes for children. And I guess for the children then that the pastoral staff work with, we want them first and foremost to have better relationships at school, so that they have an increased sense of safety, belonging, well-being, and to improve their attainment, attendance, outcomes as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And moving back to you, Verity, in terms of, we're talking a lot about the relational approach. We all believe in it, but what is it that makes it? What is it? But why does it make the difference? Why is it so important?
I think that's the $1 million question, isn't it? What actually are we talking about? And I think so often when we say things like relationship-centered practice, it feels like it's a kind of nice to have or an add-on. It's something that's free. And really, we know that it 100% isn't that. It's not a nice to have. We always look at the Harvard longitudinal study that has been running for over 80 years now and tells us very pointedly that if human beings don't have strong connection, don't have strong relationships, they're not able to thrive, they're not able to live their lives in the kind of fullest way possible. So relationship-centered practice is about putting humans first, putting relationships first, making them the first mile and not the extra mile, to steal a phrase from our colleagues at the Relationships Project. I don't know if any are on their call today, but I've definitely stolen that phrase. And I think it's the point is starting with being asset-based, being strengths-based, making sure that you're listening, making sure that you're being curious, and you're assuming the best of the people that you're working alongside. I think another really important principle in this is doing with others and not doing for or doing to, and really holding folks in mind when you're working alongside them. And so often, particularly in education, I have a teaching background, I think we're time poor and we're desperately chasing efficiency and outcomes, and so we can be at risk of becoming really transactional and kind of losing the humanity and the connection. So in a really long and roundabout way, I think relationship-centered practice is about putting human connection at the forefront of every part of your working life, professional life, where possible. Thank
you. Sounds like some delicious coffee's being made in that cafe. There's probably some nice cake that's coming your way too at some point. That's great. Thank you, Verity. And just Harriet, just picking up on that, because I think it's a really good point that she made around, just how important relationships are. But often people say it's almost like it's kind of mutually exclusive with the outcomes. I don't know if there's anything you want to pick up there around actually, if it isn't for the relationships, then the outcomes can't be achieved, or it could be done in a different, much deeper way.
Yeah, I think Verity's touched on it already, but the evidence base tells us again and again and again, all the research shows that the single most important protective factor in the lives of children and teenagers is having a quality, trusted adult relationship outside of the family home. And so if we can start there, we're already doing half of the work. We can't think about building strong peer relationships, building belonging, improving social and emotional learning. All of that stuff is unlocked through the relationship, and we use those relationships to do hard things. It doesn't mean lowering our standards or our expectations. Actually, through when we speak to most people on the course about who their trusted adult was at school, they tell us again and again, it was the person who really believed in me, the person who really challenged me, the person who held me to really high standards, the person who expected better from me. So it's not a permissive approach. It's I'm really holding you in mind, and I see you going places, and I'm going to hold you to that.
Exactly. Yeah. Far from mutually exclusive. It's the key that unlocks it, to be honest. And, we talk a lot about relationship and rigor at Jamie's Farm. Just one last one. And to either of you, have there been any surprises that have come from this from working together with other organisations as a kind of portfolio, as a partnership? Verity, do you want to come in on that?
I really like everybody. It's not a surprise. I wasn't going into it expecting to not. But I think we've learned so much from working together. Well, I certainly have. Anyway, I don't want to speak for you, Harriet, but and the joy that comes from working with other people who care about the same things but have been attacking the same problem in a different way. We're sort of again, to steal another phrase from somewhere else, that we're ganging up on the problem together, and I think that in itself is energizing. That's what I would say.
Thank you. And anything you want to say briefly, Harriet, about the future of the program?
Yeah, I guess just to echo Verity's point, like we, as a consortium, as a partnership of mission-aligned organisations, like we are going to do stronger work. We could all be going out doing the programs like this individually in the sector, but we're much stronger together because we hold different expertise, different regional experience. We have experience from different phases of education in our own backgrounds. And I guess our vision is just to be able to grow our reach in terms of our regional cohorts across the country, so that we can bring together a wider and a stronger network of professionals across the country who really care and believe in this work, so that we can continue to learn from one another and embed relational practice in schools across the country.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for all the hard work that you put into it. It's a real success. And to be honest, it is an example of what can happen when you take ego and sort of a single organisation's own ambitions away and actually just say, let's club together and see what can be done within a very short amount of time. And hopefully everyone will hear the value that it's had in the course of the next 37 minutes. Thanks, guys. Let's move on to Jen and Charlotte. So we're very lucky now to have two members from SLT who have commissioned this work. And I'm very interested to hear from them as they join the stage. Here they come. Essentially, I mean, the first question is kind of, why? I mean, what are the biggest challenges in your setting? And I suppose linked to that, what role pastoral staff play in dealing with those? And Jen, I wonder if you can answer that one first. So are there any specific challenges that you wanted to highlight as someone barges through your door?
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, obviously our context is that we're a very big mainstream set school. We're 1,500. We have around 80 EHCP students. So it's a very kind of everyday. This is what was great about education, is that every day is a new day, and every day brings new challenges that you have to overcome. I think for us, just contextually wise, our main kind of issues are, the layer of complexity that social media adds to our young people when they come through our door, having been on it majority of the night, but also kind of that reality that exists for them that isn't a reality. The reality is the people in front of them. We do have a huge amount of kind of social complexities within our school body. So for me, the pastoral world, you just kind of said, what role does pastoral, they are central to the work of any school and any foundation. They're the magic that happens. And I think they're the magic that makes the magic happen in a school. they're the adults who create, for me, the students to feel safe, to be understood and to be belonging, especially kind of in a secondary school where things are such fast paced, and a student in front of you can have up to 18 different members of staff over their week. And actually what we want to make sure in this school is that within those, we've gone on a journey in this school about embedding that restorative practice, and it's been tough. It's been a 4-year journey of making sure that, us as adults are kind, and then we show that positive, unconditional positive regard. And I'd say that adults are harder to get into that than students are, in a sense. Changing that mentality of, we were a school that handed out bottles of wine for the most demerits handed out, which is so embarrassing as a school. But now it's all about connection before correction for us. Pastoral staff, something that we learned, and I know Safa will talk about this a bit more, but something that really kind of opened our eyes, and we're really open to wanting to be restorative as a school. We try to be that trusted adult for all of our young people, and we really focus on building relationships. It's a whole part of our foundation of our school. But that word attunement that was kind of delivered in that really opened up as leaders in our pastoral team. And what's been great is that when we've got two people on the course that have very different roles in the school, a head of year, and then there's also been who leads our kind of behaviour room, the reflection room, which is very different roles. You've got someone who's high challenge, high support, but knows how to build those relationships. And you've got head of year who's the advocate, but also holds that year group with such high expectations. But for us, they lead the restorative work, they create that space, they create the opportunity for, reflection, repair, they build the relationships, and they're the people that they go to when things go wrong. So yeah, I think for us, the pastoral team are such an important, and we value them. And I'm so incredibly lucky that I have such an amazing pastoral team within the school. And that's why we're at the journey where we've been able to go on.
I mean, it's great. I really enjoyed hearing that, and actually fascinating journey you've been on. Well done for sticking at it. Bottles of wine for the most corrections. I mean, very interesting. But connection ahead of, I'll get it right. Connection ahead of corrections seems a really good idea. Can I ask, would you ever ask some of your pastoral staff to teach some of your teaching staff any of these techniques? Yeah,
so we have. So we've created like restorative champions, and we've had, our amazing receptionist who greets all of our students who are late to school or come in during the day. And it's, we've got her in because she's great at, that awful thing of like, why are you late? And so she's got an amazing relationship of welcome them in, making them feel they belong, that we've missed them, we want them here. So we've created these restorative champions from all of our pastoral team to all this team and our support staff who actually are just as valid and important and make the school such a wonderful place to be, because they are also those relationships that students have. So yeah, so then we've what we've done in our school is that we've had these restorative champions, they've been trained, and then we filtered down, and they have gone and stood in front of teachers. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't very, something they were very confident in. But actually, this is kind of, for me, relationships on how to have a relationship with a young person can be taught, but also there's got to be that willing from that, that member of staff as well. And that's really been one of our biggest hurdles. But actually, having Safa and having Grace in the course has been great, because they've been able to kind of recognise where they can then fill that gap as well and deliver that, valid training and kind of knowledge as well.
Yeah, and the way that the program of support is delivered, focusing on the self first, because we all know that if we don't kind of understand ourselves and somehow keep ourselves in check, and we're handling those difficulties, if we're under stress, then it's going to be impossible to reduce stress, de-escalate stress in those young people and build those relationships.
Yeah, and one thing we did is that, what Safa experienced with the attunement kind of categories, we did it with all our heads of year, myself as deputy head, another assistant head and deputy head, and it was really interesting and really quite self-reflective, to kind of figure out, what do you do in those situations? Are you a fixer? Do you just try and make it about you? How do you deal with those situations? Because they can come quite quickly in your day. Like, I was late to this today because I've been called to social service meetings. So how do we are balancing quite a lot of things. So how do you fit in with that? And then your young people in front of you who you want the absolute best for.
Yeah, indeed. And a lot of them. 1,500 in your case, making sure they all seen in the course of a day and a week. Yeah. Well done. Sounds absolutely terrific. I think we're having a bit of trouble with Charlotte's camera, but I think we can hear you.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I have been on the camera, so I'm not sure why it's gone off, but it's not It's not allowing me to turn it back on, unfortunately.
Never mind. Don't worry. We can hear you loud and clear, which is great. I'm wondering if, just picking up on what Jen was saying there, was there anything different in your context that you wanted to highlight in terms of the kind of support that pastoral members of staff are able to offer your young people?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jen summarised it really well. Actually, there was a lot of information there, which is actually really similar to the primary schools within our in our trust. And I think what's I guess helpful to understand is our schools. So I'm across 2 schools, and we've got many schools that are federated between special needs provisions and mainstream provisions. So that comes with a lot of complexities around special educational needs, and the amount of children you come through with different challenges and complexities. Additionally, where some of our schools have been really deprived safeguarding areas, so the contextual issues that come through, they're constantly feeding into what our pastoral team can offer, but equally into our curriculum and what our teachers can offer. So it's really about working together with our teaching staff, but also our pastoral staff about what are we offering our children, what's our curriculum, encouraging our children and teaching our children to be able to do. Yeah. And I think just the role of the pastoral staff for me is, I think we recognise the area of pastoral management in schools is really far reaching, across all encompassing areas, and having a huge role in addressing some of the challenges to remove the barriers means, these staff need to have the opportunities for colleagues and for them to access, such specialist CPD. That's about national working and practice sharing and reflection, and giving our staff time away from their day-to-day school systems to think and look at problems like a little bit differently.
Yeah, very well said, and I'm glad that they've taken so much from it. Are there changes that you guys, as senior leaders in your schools, we'll start with you, Charlotte, are there any changes that you've seen that you actually really wanted to credit the Power Up work for? It sounds like both of you have been on that journey already, but what are the changes that you've identified?
So I've reached out to one of our schools in the academy who've got members of staff on the Power Up Pastoral as well as my school, and the feedback we've had is some of the training that's been delivered from the staff that are enjoying the course on psychological safety, and being able to take that back to our staff and our teaching staff and our lunchtime staff and admin staff, all in various different roles, and then planning and delivering some training to our lunch team staff as well on relationships, because what we find is our lunchtime staff just come in at lunchtime and leave, an hour and a half later, but they have such a crucial part of the day in such an unstructured time of our schooling, where our children emotions and behaviours, it's like a roller coaster across lunchtime. So giving them the ability and the CPD that they need in order to build those relationships and keep that consistency, I think has been a really big piece of work. And I know that Emma and Justina, Justina's on the call today, and I know some of my team, we've been looking together because I've been doing some of the strengthening relationships. So we've been able to pull all that bit together as well around, our transitions in school and early engagement with our parents. And so it's given us a real tool to drive forward. And it's certainly a journey we're on, but it's definitely a journey that's going in the right direction.
That's terrific, Charlotte. Thank you. And schools are wonderful organisms, aren't they? And very multifaceted. And I actually love the fact that you're bringing this kind of work to every adult who is in the school, to be honest, because if there's stress being felt by any of them, it will ripple out. We're all in the same system, and that's what can kind of happen very quickly. So it's brilliant that it's been rolled out. Jen, is there anything you wanted to say on that point?
No, just very similar, really. Everything that, that has been delivered to the teams and then kind of bring ball back into school. We've looked at how we can embed that further into our practices. We've really done a lot about calming the storm, which I know is that kind of focus of like matching the storm, matching the energy. We've done a lot of that when, there's that fallout, there will always be disagreements. And I think that's the key thing about how we teach our young people to then match, how do you overcome that? And that's been really key. But yeah, just further embed in practice to ensure that young people feel a sense of belonging in a school. That's really important for us, is that we want every student to feel like they belong here and that they get to be themselves, not just fit in. I think that's really important, because for us, if they can belong, then they get to be who they are. So yeah. Well
put. And they need adults who really see them, who they trust, for them to really feel like they belong. That's brilliant. Thank you, guys. That's really, really helpful. And we're going to move on to some of the practitioners, many of whom have been, I think, name checked already, essentially, in terms of the impact that Power Up Pastoral has had potentially on them, and also everything that they're delivering in school. So I'm going to invite them to come up to the stage, and whoever comes up first gets to have the first question. That might be why they're hiding. Here we go. Safa, you're up first. If you wouldn't
Hi.
mind answering, good to see you. If you wouldn't mind answering the first question, which is what has your experience of Power Up Pastoral been so far? So maybe just give a little bit of the context that you're working in, and then just explain how Power Up has been.
Yeah, so I'm a head of year. I'm a teaching head of year. I work in a secondary school in North London. Jen Burniston is my amazing SLT line manager. So yeah, as Jen kind of gave the context of our school, but we're definitely on this journey of being, you know, a totally relational school. So I've started this course this year and I've been working on Power Up this year. I would say for the main thing is it's been incredibly reflective. The course has been so, I think the most important thing, it's been so well linked to actually how we can use these ideas in our settings. You know, it hasn't just been, you know, kind of this sort of theoretical language or kind of an add-on to the work that we do, but it's felt really purposeful and focused on, you know, our best practice in school. Harriet mentioned earlier about it kind of providing a network of kind of like-minded people, and I think for me that's been one of the most valuable things, just all the peer-to-peer learning that I've done when we've met in person. Obviously we share the challenges that we face, and you know that's been really nice to be able to share those, but also kind of share best practice and, you know, hear about things that others already embed in our schools. And it's you know, for the most part, a super positive space where we also share the successes that we've had. And I think that part of it's also been really affirming. It's kind of reinforced the idea that actually what we do does work best when we have this kind of connection and trust focus, and schools aren't always just places focused on, you know, the systems and the interventions, but that trust and connection really does matter. And so that's felt really affirming. I think it's also been challenging. It's, you know, it does kind of force you to reflect, and I think we've had opportunities with each other to also really reflect in a place that's felt safe to do so. It's pushed me to think quite critically about my own language, my own assumptions, how consistent I am in my own practice, but also think quite critically about my school, how consistent my school is kind of across all of our sort of practice. It's allowed me to kind of go back to Jen as my line manager and have quite reflective conversations with her too. And I'm really fortunate that I'm in a school where that kind of space is really open. So yeah.
Well, that's a whole suite of wonderful things that you've taken from it, and I just kind of pick up on kind of one which kind of comes across all of them in some ways, which is the fact that actually on the program you experience some of what you want to put back into place in school. So that kind of safety, the kind of ability to reflect. And it sounds like you're in a school where that is the culture, which is wonderful, to be honest. But I suppose one of the things I'm interested in, imagine you were in a different school, which wasn't on that journey already. How do you think it would feel to have the Power Up Pastoral work and that support, and then come back in and it feel a bit jarring? Or what do you think that would be like?
Yeah, I suppose that the thing about the course is it's also given me confidence to know that I have the language and the tools to discuss with other staff. And no school is perfect. Mine isn't. And I know Jen would be fine for me to say that actually what this course has also been good at is make me feel confident to say to staff, you know, that I work with, that actually this is how I feel a relational approach would work in this context. And, you know, it's allowed me to have kind of more critical conversations with staff too. I kind of put on small CPDs since starting this course and kind of worked with other staff, and they've sort of shared challenges about kind of adopting this approach when you're in a classroom of 30 students and things like that. And I guess I feel more empowered now to say, you know, to use the language of kind of relational practice, that it's helped. And I think the other thing is, so one thing that stuck out a kind of a few weeks ago is kind of being with other staff on this course who are maybe further along on a journey or in a different context where they've like really adopted a relational approach for a really long time. I was speaking to colleagues who work in an alternative provision who have as part of their behaviour policy, they have 0 exclusions. My school doesn't have that. And I guess, you know, I kind of went back to my school it's not that we've got really high exclusion rate, but it's a different approach to ours. And it did allow me to kind of think and wonder, what would my school look like if that was our behaviour policy, that even in the most challenging circumstances, we never sent a young person home. And that was truly our approach, that they always belong here, whatever circumstances we're in, and what would we need to do to be able to get there. And so I think, even my school, which is incredible, but it isn't perfect, it's kind of empowered me to kind of wonder and imagine and have those conversations with my SLT about what could, the next steps look like. So yeah.
Terrific. I mean, you come across that way, really passionate, really empowered to have those conversations. And I think it was Verity who said earlier on, creating a movement of change. I think actually what you're talking about is that people working in very different contexts, learning from each other, but driving forward this agenda because they can see it works. Thank you for articulating it so well, Safa. So over to you, Justina. How are you doing?
Hello, how are you?
Very well. Nice to see you. So, I mean, in terms of your experience, I mean, I wonder if you could share one idea or tool that you've taken from the program that you feel has really made a difference for you. And again, if you could just briefly touch on the context that you're working in as well.
So I'm Justina. I work as in wellbeing and behaviour across Hobmore and Haxby Road, so 2 schools within the academy. The thing that I've really enjoyed, well, maybe not enjoyed is the right word, but the part that there was a task to make an asset map. I've done asset maps before and that was all fine, but it was to go and meet those people. Now, I'm quite awkward at bringing up a stranger, even if it's another professional in the right context, and saying, can I pick your brains about this? That doesn't feel comfortable to me. So just really basic, because it was there in a task. It's like, no, this is what you need to do. It's like, oh yeah, so it's okay. Don't worry about that personal stuff and actually just go ahead and do your job and really, make those connections with people so you can help those families.
I think that's a great one to choose, actually, because again, that's something that could happen all the time and yet doesn't. And you see everywhere the pitfalls and the problems that come from professionals not talking to each other and not having those crucial relationships where they actually don't treat each other with suspicion, but they treat each other with trust so they can make change happen for the young people who exist to support.
Yeah.
So how about you in terms of the barriers or challenges that you faced?
I think the barriers is the same probably as everybody. It's just that time to have to share what you've learned, your experiences, the things that you found really well with as many people as you'd want to within your schools. It's just not easy, and I think everyone will probably say that. It's just being able to get out and see everybody face to face and say, look, I think this would be really good. Have you tried this? Let's do that. Just actually being able to go and do that. You can send emails but it's just not the same, because as much as you want those connections with your children and the families, it's having connections with everybody you work with as well, isn't it? To be able to really get things embedded and to be able to support each other as best you can.
Absolutely. And I want to just pick on that one as well, in the sense that I'm interested in how some other colleagues have experienced you being on this program. There we go. There's a little wry smile. But both. It would be great to hear like somebody who was who kind of potentially became. You've taught on the back of this, as in who might have picked something up from what you've said, but also maybe somebody who kind of expressed a bit of cynicism. I'm interested in that as well.
I don't know if there's been anyone that's been particularly cynical. I think, that's a really tricky one to answer. I think because of working across 2 schools and trying to get round everybody, I think it's usually like I'm usually thinking about things and emailing people, and I think that's probably not great. So that's probably where I experience a bit of cynicism, where somebody's she's sending another email about something again, something that I've discovered or feel passionate about. And then as far as training, I haven't been able to impart any of that training yet, again, but I'm really hoping that I can just help people realise the staff, you know, the lunchtime staff and things like that, you know, the support staff, how important their jobs are, and just make them realise that the relationships that they make are so important, because as a pastoral person or a teacher, you're not always able to reach all of those children, but you know that, I mean, an MSA will probably see like 200 children in one hour, and they can make really good, really quick connections. And if they can just understand a little bit of maybe where some of those behaviours are coming from and why their role is so important, that'd be really good. So just hasn't quite got to that point yet, but I'm really looking forward to being able to hopefully get that out there and really help everyone understand.
Yeah, and I think you would be able to advocate for it brilliantly. I think the way that you could kind of in simple language explain the value of it for the young people, but also how much more fun it is in everyone's day-to-day jobs when you do give yourself time to do that sort of thing.
That's it, yeah. Always think of those positives, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, definitely.
Great. Well, if you guys could stay on stage, I think, if that's all right. We're going to invite everyone else back on, and we're going to ask some questions that have come through. So, this is a good one. I think we'll start off, if it's all right. Let's hear how busy the cafe is. Verity, here's the first question for you. How do you ensure school level change rather than just for individuals? As in, so as part of the program, this has definitely been an aspiration, as opposed to just individuals working as islands within the sea. You know, actually, you know, we want it to be more deeply embedded, and I think we've got some good examples of that. But could you potentially highlight some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about starting as ever, it's so cheesy, isn't it? Starting with your why. Why has a school decided to invest time in this, and what is it that the senior leaders who have put the time in are hoping to achieve? And then I think having a really clear sort of way that you're going to enable the individual practitioners to make the most out of the programme in advance. So knowing just really simple conditions like how are they going to come and access the sessions? Have they got cover in place? Can they physically get there? Is it far away, etc. And then I think on the flip side of that is also the senior leaders. This is a role of being interested and asking and following up and giving practitioners permission to play a little bit in this space and to innovate and to share practice. You know, it's really great to hear both Safa and Justina talking about the ways that they have felt the permission to kind of just do things a little bit differently or try something. And I think that the conditions have to be there. And then for individuals themselves, and this goes for facilitators as well as for practitioners, I think when we're in the sessions, we have to be really open and vulnerable and kind of practice what we preach, that this is a difficult thing to get better at, I guess, because it feels like you're talking about your personality and you're talking about psychological safety. It can feel a little bit awkward in a room full of people you don't really know very well. So jumping in feet first, I think.
Yeah, very good. And I'm just wondering if I could go to Jen next, maybe. In terms of your role as a kind of deputy head, the point that Verity is making there around, you know, creating that sense of psychological safety, which we try to do through the program, how have you been able to do that within your school? Because it's a big deal, isn't it? It's basically the opportunity the permission to take risks and not be kind of hung out to dry when it goes a bit wrong, you know, and creating enough safety so that people actually feel like they won't, they won't be sort of in real trouble if things go a little bit wrong, and they can actually own up to some of those things when they do. So there's full transparency and things can be driven forward in that way and properly learned from.
Yeah, I think we created an ethos. Like I say, it was a complete shift of culture when we started this, and so we tried to create a kind of environment where, look, you know, we can't be hypocrites here. So when we're talking about young people, us as ourselves as humans, need to also own it if we make a mistake, and that's okay. We have such a lucky job as that we're teaching not only a curriculum and an outcome of GCSEs or A levels, but also we're teaching young people how to be and how to act, and we're modeling the model. So when and I think we've tried to go on that, and we've had loads of hiccups over the ways where we've tried shared language. We call it the Highgate way, and we talk about these 4 C's, and I can get it into any conversation or anything or correcting, or I can just slip in our 4 C's at any point. And I think we tried to create a system of a behavior kind of culture where actually we're behind it, we believe in it. So kindness for us is a huge thing in this school, and that is kind of where we that model of the model. So if students need to show kindness, but humans and adults need to show that kindness as well. And so it is kind of the Highgate way, and it's for both staff and students. So for us, that was something that we were really crucial to us about creating a culture that wasn't, this is what you do and this is adults what we do. And therefore, I think that has massively helped. Did I answer that? Because I could talk about the Highgate way.
Well, I think you're doing it. I know, exactly. I quite like the sound of the Highgate way.
Join it. It's very, we'll give you a high vis.
And I mean, I think it's probably right to go to Safa now, really, to just kind of see. I mean, the question is about a magic wand. If you had a magic wand, what would you change about your school? But it sounds like your school is already doing pretty well. Well, it's doing well because it's not pretending it is perfect.
I think, yeah, I suppose all schools have the same challenge of and Jen alluded to this, of making sure that practice is embedded with every staff member in the school, and not just pastoral staff but every member of staff. And I think I am really fortunate. My school's really committed. We have a really trauma-informed approach, but that doesn't mean that every staff member all of the time is following it. I was saying earlier about I led a kind of small CPD, and I got quite a lot of challenge from members of staff saying that this work on our calm meetings, student storms, and being able to do all of this really relational work doesn't always work, or isn't always possible when there's 30 students. It's really busy, we don't have the time, and that I found that quite challenging, sort of being able to. So I guess my magic wand would be, I suppose, for having a whole staff body that's really committed, and knowing that approach really takes time, but also that it doesn't just take one member of staff and one trusted adult for a young person. They see so many members of staff in a day or a week. But yeah, I guess having everyone committed to the approach, having a leadership team that is wanting everybody to be part of that change, I guess.
And I think Jen was coming in on that then now.
I just was going to say, I think it's absolutely there, holding firm, not going because sometimes you can be like, oh my god, this is not working, this needs to stop. And I think it's that we call it, I do this quite often in behaviour and culturally, that you can culture tip. So I often say to our kind of staff that, when a student gets an exam wrong, you don't throw out your curriculum. You don't be like, right, done, start all over again. But we often culture tip when it comes to behaviours of young people, and I think that's really key with any kind of, with this approach, is that you can't culture tip when things don't go wrong, that things are going to go wrong, but you have to hold firm and keep going and chip away at those people who don't find positive, regard, unconditional positive regard very easy. I think that's really key for us, and that's something as a leader that I've done, where you've gone from a very different route of behaviour and culture and trauma-informed approach and restorative from a draconian way, where that culture tip happens often. You have one child who or an incident, and then it's not working, and you can often, you've got to hold firm, and you've got to be really confident and not scared.
Yeah, and the role of a leader to contain some of those stresses and strains when they come up is tough, but it's vital, and it sounds like you're doing a great job of that, Jen. Thank you. Moving on to Charlotte, I wonder, there was a lot written in the school's white paper about belonging, that it came up as a big thing, and I wonder, as somebody doing your crucial role, what was your response to that? It didn't come necessarily with loads of extra money to help you to do it, and loads of extra resources, but was it something that actually you were pleased to see written in there, something that you're already working on, or is it something that's kind of that you're sort of slightly worried about affecting in your school?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Jake, because I think as primary schools, we try to be as inclusive as possible to, you know, all children with different needs. And I think what we know is there is such a lack of specialist, you know, provisions out there for the amount of children that are presenting with such challenging needs at the moment. So I think for our schools in particular, and particularly in our academy, we have quite a lot of we have a special school within our academy, and we have, you know, specialist provisions, so enhanced resource provisions already attached to, you know, some of our primary schools. But I think it leaves a bit of a gap in thinking what is going to happen. You know, how is this going to present in schools with lack of money, lack of funding, but then equally we need to create more provisions within our mainstream settings that are so inclusive to children who maybe are really struggling to access the curriculum, and children whose needs are beyond what a mainstream school can sometimes provide. So I think there's a lot of work that has got to be done, I think, nationally, and, you know, and across the York City in particular. But I think there's a big shift, I think, in working with parents around their perceptions of what their children need versus what a school can offer, but actually what a school is trying to offer. And I think there's got to be somewhere where we bridge that gap in the middle of, we may not get it right first because, you know, we're mainstream schools, but actually if we can create inclusive practice within our settings where children can, you know, thrive and not just survive, then I think there's a step forward in meeting the needs of the white paper.
Yeah.
Equally, whilst managing the challenges of the funding and lack of that is presenting.
Indeed. And actually, you know, upskilling and raising the profile and status of pastoral staff in those schools is a big part of that, to enable them to do that. It's huge. Yeah, indeed. It's a huge resource. I want to go finally to Justina, if that's all right. Say you're someone in school who is minded potentially to do the Power Up Pastoral program, on the fence a little bit. What would you say to them? Do you think they should do it or not?
I definitely think you should. Yeah, you should do it. I think you're not often given the opportunity to go and speak to other professionals who technically do the same role as you, but actually it's completely different. It's because it's such a massive umbrella. That's a great part of it, that networking part of it, but also it gives you time to reflect on your practice so you can improve. Definitely do it. I think it's really good. You give one person a lot of skills and a lot of confidence, and by doing that you can let that go out to the rest of the school. But it's definitely worth doing. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Really good. Well, that on time for once. I've been able to do this on time. I just want to say a massive thanks to all the contributors in your busy schedules, particularly those working in schools. Know how hectic it is. And yeah, it's just been brilliant to hear from you directly what your experience with the Power Up Pastoral thing is. It is here to stay. It's we're going to be growing the number of regions that we're working with and growing the number of participants. In the chat, Chloe's put up the latest flyer with an overview of the Power Up program. It gives some really good detail as to some of the content that the program provides. And actually, anyone who's really interested, I think do have a look at that, because it's very coherent, it's very well set out. And actually, if you wanted to potentially kind of get someone onto that Power Up program, please do send them the expression of interest form, which is going to come up soon. Tracy's struggling to access the flyer, so we're going to send that in a different way. But I also wanted to say a big thank you to everybody who's worked on the Power Up Pastoral program that this year. We heard from Verity, we heard from Harriet. Chloe's here in the background making this work fantastically well. It's a real credit to all of you for working so well together, and it's great that so many people have benefited so much already. Great. In terms of Jamie's Farm webinars, we've got another one coming up next month, which is going to look at the school's white paper in more detail. Please do join us for that. Otherwise, we hope you can get out into the sun and enjoy the lovely afternoon when all your hard work is done. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.